Hello everyone, welcome to ZNZ Classroom. I'm Mary, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the first 10 questions of the non-calculator math section in the SAT Practice 1 test released by College Board. So let's get started. For the first question here, I have if x minus 1 over 3 equals k and k equals 3, what is the value of x? So the first step I'm going to do is plug in k. So I have x minus 1 over 3 equals 3, right? Because 3 is k. And then I'm going to do something called cross multiply, which basically says if two fractions equals to each other, then AD equals BC. So back in this case, you might not really see the two fractions, but if I write into this form, x minus 1 over 3 equals 3 over 1, you can clearly see there are two fractions. 3 over 1 is basically 3 because 3 divided by 1 is 3. So then you cross multiply. So I have x minus 1 times 1 equals 3 times 3. So I have x minus 1 equals 9. And at plus 1 on both sides, I got x equals 10. So answer choice D is correct. Next question. It says for I equals square root of -1 with sum of 7 plus 3i plus -8 plus 9i. So many people might actually be freaked out because they saw square root of -1. But it's actually pretty easy in this case because no multiplication of i's and it's just simple addition, which you basically just do combine like terms. So I'm going to add these two terms over here and these two terms over here. But I'm kind of going to remove the parentheses first. Since this sign over here is plus, when I remove the parentheses, I don't change any sign in my parentheses. So what I'm going to do is 7 plus 3i. I'm not changing the sign, so it's minus 8 plus 9i. Then I'm going to combine them. So 7 minus 8. That's two like terms which both are integers, and I'm going to combine 3i plus 9i, which in this case give me -1 plus 12i, which is answer choice A. Pretty easy, right? Because you don't need any multiplication. So I is actually not scary. Next question. So it says on Saturday afternoon, Armin sent M text messages each hour for 5 hours. Tyron sent P text messages each hour for 4 hours, which the following represent total number of messages sent by Armin and Tyron on Saturday afternoon. So when you see the total number of messages of both people, I'm actually adding the total number of messages sent by Armin and total number of messages sent by Tyron. So what is the total number of messages sent by Armin? I'm actually going to multiply M and 5M. Why? Something simple to explain. For example, instead of saying M, I say I sent, if Armin sent 2 text messages each hour. So let's just kind of look at this. So 1 hour, she will send 2 text messages, right? 2 hours, she will send 4 text messages because 2 plus 2 is 4. 3 hours, she's going to send 6. 4 hours, 8, and 5 hours, 10. So you can see that 2 basically represents AM. So this is actually 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, and 2 times 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here represent the number of hours, and 2 represents M. So M times the number of hours is the total number of messages that Armin will send given the number of hours, right? So in this case, number of hours is 5 and M is M, so 5M for Armin. And it's the same thing for Tyron. Just change the M to P. It's exactly the same thing. So Tyron gonna send 4P messages. So plus 4P. And that's give me C over here. Next one. Kathy is a repair technician for a phone company. Each week, she receives a batch of phones that need repairs. The number of phones that she has left to fix at the end of each day can be estimated with the equation P equals 108 minus 2030D, where P is the number of phones left and D is the number of days she has worked that week. What is the meaning of value 108 in this equation? So this type of equation is actually tested so many times, and it's actually not a hard one. And you don't even need to read this whole paragraph over here. So for this type of question, two things are the most important: the equation and the meaning of P and D. So usually they will give you a linear equation like this. And in a linear equation, y equals ax plus b. A usually represent a rate, and b, which is the y-intercept, usually represents an initial amount, right? So in this case, they give you P equals 108 minus 2030. So A is basically the number in front of the variable, which in this case 2030. They kind of flip them, but just basically they wrote y equals b plus 2a, plus ax, I mean. And that's the same thing as ax plus b. So in here, I have 23 in front of the variable, which means a rate, because that's a. And in this case, it will be negative 23, but that doesn't really matter because they're asking about 108. So 108 represents an initial amount, which is the y-intercept. So looking at the answer choice, these two says rate. So I'm going to cancel out them right away. Not cancel out, but eliminate them. And then let me read A and B. So for A, it says Katie will complete the repairs within 108 days. So this 108 has nothing to do with the number of days, because P represents the number of phones left, then 108 has to do something with phones. The only thing that in this equation that kind of has some relationship with days is the D, but the other numbers all relates to phones. So A can be eliminated, so it's B. So usually when you see this type of question, just read what's the equation and what are the meanings of the variables. Now you can do this question right away, because you know most of the time the number in front of the variable is a rate and the other one is initial amount. So we'll see this type of question later too. Next question, it says which of following is equivalent to the expression above. So in this case, you basically combine like terms again, but the only tricky thing here is, I'm sorry about that. The only tricky thing here is the negative sign over here. When you have a negative sign in front of parentheses, you change all the signs inside of parentheses when you remove it. So I have x squared y minus 3y squared plus 5xy squared. So it's negative initially, so I'm changing it to positive. It's positive initially, I'm changing it to negative. And negative initially, I'm changing to positive. Then I'm finding like terms. So the first two I'm going to combine is this, which gives me x squared y plus x squared y. Then the second, I'm going to combine this one and this one. Remember the negative sign here. Let me just highlight them more clearly. Right. So I have plus negative 3y squared plus 3y squared. And then I have plus the last pair, which is 5xy squared and negative 3xy squared. So I have plus 5xy squared minus 3xy squared. So when you do this type of combination, you basically put plus for all the signs between parentheses, and then you basically copy the coefficient, which is a number and the sign in front of that term, into the parentheses. So remember to copy the signs. So like, for example, negative 3y squared, don't put 3y squared. Okay, now let's combine. So these two combines to 2x squared y plus, this give me 0 plus 2xy squared, right? So I have, basically ignore the 0, I have 2x squared y plus 2xy squared. And that gives me C, right? That's a bad circle, but it's fine. Let's do, okay, that's number 7. Let's do number 6. Okay, that's where I said there are going to be a lot of this type of question, but once you understand that kind of meaning, it's really easy to do. It says a pediatrician uses a model above to estimate the height age of a boy in inches in terms of boys age 8 in years between the ages of 2 and 5. Based on the model, what is estimated increase in inches of a boy's height each year? So when you see those wordings like each year, each hour, each month, or each whatever, if you have each in front of it, it most likely going to represent a rate. So you know that rate is a number in front of the variable because that's a slope basically. Then I'm finding 3 right away. So it's 8. Pretty easy, right? But if it's asking like, what is the initial height of the boy? Then it's going to be 28.6. So just know the meanings and it's pretty easy to do. You don't even need to read the whole question. You can just read the last sentence and you found it's asking each year. Then you can choose 3. But if you have time, then actually read the question just in case, right? So next question, it says, this complicated thing over here, and it says the formula above gives the monthly payment M needed to pay off a loan of P dollars at R% annual interest over N month. Which of the following gives P in terms of M, R, and N? So basically, when you read, these things gives you something like you think it's really hard, but just ignore them. The last sentence is actually the most important one here. Basically, they want you to give P in terms of M, R, and N, which is a fancy wording of saying just isolate P on one side, right? So when I isolate P on one side for this type of question, it's actually pretty easy, even though this one seems complicated. What you can do is actually you can think this whole thing as a term and P as the other term over here. So basically 2 things are multiplying, right? And this large term over here, you can actually write it as A over B. A per 10 as the numerator and B per 10 as the denominator. So now it simplifies to M equals A over B times P. Then how do you move to A? How do you just make P isolate in one side? You basically divide it by A over B on both sides. So these 2 cancels out. So what is M divided by A over B? So this is something important to know. When you divide it by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. So B over A. So, and don't be scared of this form over here. It just means divide, right? If you write this line over here as divide and write into this form, I think you can actually do the calculation pretty easy. So basically I got M times B over A equals P, right? So B in this case is the denominator over here and A is the numerator over here. So let's see which form. B over here actually represents this form I wrote over here because it says M and then this B over here is the denominator I saw over here that I defined as B, and the denominator in the question is a numerator I put over here, which is what I want because basically I flipped A over B to B over A in this case. Okay, move on. Next question. Oh, I forgot to erase. Let's just erase this really quickly. Just cut. Okay. So it says if A over B equals 2, what is value of 4B over A? So they give you A over B equals 2, then you can actually find out what is B over A. So A over B equals 2, basically equals 2 over 1, right? So then easy, B over A is 1 over 2. You basically flip the 2 numbers. Then since you know B over A is 1 over 2, then 4B over A, basically you multiply by 4 on both sides. So 4 times 1/2, that gives me 2, right? So answer choice C. Next question, what is the solution x, y to the system equations above? So for this question, I'm actually gonna explain very detailed because I found out that a lot of people are struggling with system equations, and when they don't have a calculator, they don't know how to do it. So, well, the most simple way you can do this, plug in all the answer choices, x as x and y as y, and test out which one's easy. But that's the last method you can do. But for the algebra method, here is the explanation, right? So I like elimination when I'm doing system equations, and there's 2 eliminations I could do. I can either eliminate x or I can eliminate y. So I'm going to do both ways over here. First, I'm going to try to eliminate x. I'm going to label these two equations as 1 and 2, right? So I saw my coefficients here for x is 3 and -1. -1. There's a hidden 1 over here. So -1, -1. So, okay, this is a bad drawing. Let me draw it again. So -1, and then I'm gonna color this. Okay, so in order for them to go to opposite sign but equal in magnitude, which means ignore the sign, they're the same, right? So in order for them to be like that, I need to multiply the second equation by 3. And this means every term is multiplied by 3. So I have 2y minus, not writing the 1, minus x equals -19 multiplied by 3. And this will give me 6y minus 3x equals -57. And then since I have this equation here, I'm going to call it 3. And then what I'm going to do is 1 plus 3. So 1 plus 3. So 1 plus 3 gives me 3x plus 4y equals -23 plus, so the equation, next equation, -3x. I'm going to lining all the variables up. So equals -57. So I will get these two cancel. So 10y equals -80. So if I divide by 10 on both sides, I got y equals -8, which in this case is answer choice B. I can already find it. But let me just solve it completely for x. So I can plug into either 1, 2, or 3 equation to solve for x. I'm going to choose 2 because it seems easier. So I'm going to say 2y minus x equals -19. So 2 times -8 minus x equals -19. -16 minus x equals -19. Then, so I'm plus 16 on both sides. I got -x equals -3. So divide by -1 both sides, x equals 3, which is what we have in the answer choice over here. So now let's do the other way. How do we cancel out y? So for y, right? Here has a 4. Oh, my bad. Here is a 4. Here is a 2. So make them opposite sign, but equal in magnitude. I can multiply the second one by -2, right? So 2 times -2, right? So I have 2y minus x equals -19 times -2. So I -4y plus 2x equals 38. So then I can do what? I still can do 1 plus, okay, this is also labeled as 3, I guess. So then I have 1 plus 3 again. So I'm lining them up. 3x plus 4y equals -23 plus what? Here is 2x minus 4y equals 38. So then I get just a bad line. Draw it again. So these two cancel. I have 5x equals what? This is 15, right? So then x divide by 5 on both sides. X give me 3. And then you can calculate for y. Calculate y, right? I'm not going to do it here because you basically plug in and you're going to get -8, definitely, right? Okay, let's move on. So you just realize that system equations actually not really hard. And after we practice more, you'll get better at it. And it's actually pretty easy. Okay, last question. So for the function g defined above, a is a constant and g4 equals 8. And what is the value of g -4? So this one seems complicated, but it's actually pretty easy. The only thing to know is that 4 squared equals -4 in parentheses squared, because 16 equals 16. -1 squared is positive. All right, so 16 equals 16. So this is a is a constant, and multiply by x squared, which in this case we already realized they're the same because when you plug in 4, basically you're plugging 4 as the x, right? So 4 squared equals -4 squared. So let's just say x squared, right? And then I know a is a constant, it's not going to change anyway. So I know my answer over here not going to change. So it's going to stay as 8. Or if you don't understand with like a or something, what you can do, just plug in a simple number. Plugging a as 2, for example, 2x squared plus 24, right? So I say G4 equals 2 times, ignore the 8 for now, because just like ignore the 8, because I just want to say that there's a fact that when I plug in like 4 and 84 into the function, I'm gonna get the same result. So 2 times 4 squared plus 24 equals, that's 30. That's 32. So that's 56. And then G negative 4 equals 2 negative 4 squared plus 24. That's also 32. So that's also going to be 56. So see how these two results equal to each other? I can actually even calculate for a, because I know that 8 equals 8 times 4 squared plus 24. And then I know that I subtract 24 on both sides, I got negative 16 equals 8 times 4 squared. So 4 squared is 16, so divide by 16 on both sides, I got 8 equals negative 1. Then I can do g of x equals negative x squared plus 24. I plug in my negative 4, which is, oh, my bad, sorry. So I have g negative 4 equals negative 4 squared plus 24, which equals negative. This thing gives me 16 plus 24, which gives me 8. So there are so many approaches to do it. The simplest one is you realize x squared, and then so you realize that 4 squared and negative 4 in parentheses squared are the same. Or you can do something realize, which is a kind of extension to the first one, that you kind of realize I can like pretend an A, and then I can found that I plug in 4 and negative 4, I'll get the same result. Or the third approach, which may like spend you more time, but you actually calculate for A, and then you calculate what would the value be when you plug in negative 4. So the third method is actually the most complete one when you are doing a question in your free time or something. But if you're under SAT time constraint, I should suggest you to do the first method, because it's the easiest, the quickest, and you can get the answer in like 10 seconds. And thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.